Today, we remember the late anti-apartheid struggle stalwart Ahmed Kathrada, who would have celebrated his 92nd birthday today. He died on the 27th of March 2017 at the age of 87. Kathrada was one of the Rivonia 11.
The 27th of March this year marked 4 years since the apartheid struggle hero Ahmed Kathrada passed away. Uncle Kathy, as he was affectionately known, was born on this day in 1929 in Rivonia, a small rural town in the Northwest Province. His activism began at an early age. Kathrada was only 12 years old when he joined the Young Communist Party of South Africa during World War II. Years after that, he committed to fighting for the rights of the Indian community, which later evolved into the fight for non-white South Africans through the alliance between the African and Indian Congresses. It was then that he joined forces with the likes of the late Nelson Mandela, Elias Motsoaledi, Govan Mbeki, and other leaders of the underground movement who were arrested, tried, and sentenced to life imprisonment during the Rivonia trial in 1963. Kathrada spent 26 years in prison, 18 of them on Robben Island. He was released on the 15th of October 1989 at the age of 60 and continued to devote the rest of his life to the advancement of non-racialism in post-apartheid South Africa. Last month, over 30 people were killed in alleged race-related attacks in Phoenix, north of Durban. The attacks during the unrest in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng served as a stark reminder of the country's dark past. The Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, formed to continue his legacy of furthering non-racialism, reflected on this.
Mr. Kathrada would have been informed by his work during the 1949 riots, where after that particular incident, he and a range of leaders went down to KZN to be part of the investigations in terms of what had happened. And eventually, they refused to be part of the state's commission of inquiry because they were not able to interrogate the state's witnesses. But their evidence seems to have proved that the 49 riots was instigated by the newly established apartheid government, who had just come into office in 1948. I think he would have been very much informed by that experience today to look at who is behind this, who benefits from it, both in the immediate and in the long term, who thrives from instigating racial tension and not denying that race and racism is not a big issue in this country, but its exploitation at a particular moment is the kinds of issues that he would have asked us to focus on now.
The Kathrada Foundation put out a statement that asks us to think critically about that moment, not to reduce it to the racial issues and not to be sidelined by narratives that this was a racial attack. In fact, it was very much around a planned insurrection, planned way to destabilize democracy. And Mr. Kathrada, I think, would, I don't want to put words in his mouth. He was a great advocate of not putting words in anyone's mouth. But he always stood up for what was right and how we should understand things correctly.
The foundation also follows in the footsteps of the late struggle hero through its commitment to international solidarity. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which flared up earlier this year, sparked protests in some parts of the world, including South Africa. Kathrada stood with Palestinians, an act which is still remembered and valued by Palestinian-led movements such as boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement.
It's important to recall his very famous quote when he visited Palestine. He said, and I'm quoting, "In our short stay here, we have seen and heard enough to conclude that apartheid has been reborn here. In its reborn form, it is, however, worse than its predecessor," he said. "Even during the worst days of apartheid, we did not have walls to divide and control people. We also did not have separate roads for separate races, and we did not have the system of checkpoints that exist here. End of quote. So this reflected a very deep understanding of Israel's secular colonial regime of military occupation, as also incorporating the crime of apartheid. So he was one of the earliest leaders in South Africa, alongside Archbishop Desmond Tutu and other leaders in the trade union movement, in the Communist Party, in the ANC, and the Solidarity movement, who diagnosed Israel as not just an occupation, not just a settler colony, but also as a system of apartheid. And that was a key point. The Kathrada Foundation has supported and continues to support.
Bakuti says there are many lessons that can be derived from the kind of solidarity shown by Kathrada.
The most important lesson that we learn from Ahmed Kathrada's legacy and struggle, as well as Mandela's struggle, is how to translate this deep emotional solidarity and support into effective solidarity, meaningful solidarity, ending complicity, and pushing for targeted sanctions against Israel to dismantle its apartheid regime. This is the key point. Rhetoric is not enough. We understand from Ahmed Kathrada's legacy, rhetoric is never enough. It's important to translate that into actions.
The foundation will commemorate the late struggle icon's birthday through an online event that will focus on Kathrada's activism before and after his imprisonment.